Hello students, greetings for the day. How are you? I hope all are doing well. Today we are going to discuss principles of layout and design. That's part 1 of the topic. Part 2 is principles of design, which I'll be doing it in the later classes. Now let's see what are the principles of layout. In this section we shall discuss what is a page design, what are the types of layout, the grid system, and the various elements of a front page of a newspaper. Objective of this topic: in the end, you will be able to identify the various elements of the front page of the newspaper. You will demonstrate an understanding of the grid system and able to apply in designing the page. Now let's see what is page designing. Page designing refers to the layout of the newspaper or a magazine page, which is also known as page makeup. It is an arrangement of articles, cuts, headlines, nameplate, folio and other contents on the page. Basically, it refers to the arrangements of the elements on the page, usually the specific placement of image, text and the style. Here when I say arrangement, it is not simply arrangement but artistic arrangement of all the elements, which include the colors, shapes, types and photographs. So most of the newspaper uses various styles and size and types, pictures and other art to make every story in the newspaper readable and interesting to the readers. Layout of the newspaper. Newspaper, as you may have observed, have a typical layout and pages are divided vertically into what is known as columns. Column size in different newspapers also vary. Newspapers are generally around 8 columns of 4 centimeters width each. The divisions are made by line spaces left blank between the two sets of text, and these are called gutters. If you see this, the white space here, these are gutters. The divisions are made by line spaces, as I already told you, gutters. These help to separate the news items as well as aid readability. If you closely notice the advertisements, you will also notice that they also conform to the columns. The width is measured by columns while the height is measured in centimeters. These are important as they not only form the basics of layout but also helps in calculating the cost in terms of columns and centimeters. In some newspaper, there are less number of columns, whereas the width of each column may be more. These are various elements in the front page of a newspaper. If you see, this is a flag, you have headline, you have headshot, also called as mugshot, then this white space is called the gutter, then you have a catch line, that is a caption, then you have a reverse type headline, then you have a gray screen. That to differentiate the first part and the below, you can usually use a gray screen because here is a white screen and this is a gray screen. Then you have a cut line. Cut line is basically the description of the images on the page. Then you have a box, then you have a jump line. Now let's see the different categories of layout. Layout can be text dominant, image and text dominant. If there is too much or large text, then it will have to be text dominated. But from the layout point of view, headline could be used in a larger display fonts occupying more area if that creates a desirable effect. Here, as you see, text is the most important element of publication. It communicates lot of information on the page. It can be grey and boring, but there are many ways to manipulate text so it is pleasing to the eyes and easy to read. One way is making the headline bold type or italics. We can also change the size of the text or align it in a different ways. In addition to alignment, we can also use box or bullets. This is an example of a text dominant. If you look at this image, there is hardly images, but if you find lot of text been dominating on the page. Then you have image dominant. These layouts are seen regularly in our newspapers and magazines, where a picture of a celebrity takes the center stage or the product is shown in all its glory, like in most automobile advertisements. Here if you see, this is an image dominant. You will mainly find this kind of arrangements in entertainment pages or the supplement page of a newspapers or on the magazine. Most of the magazines, if you look at it, is an image dominant. You have more of text and more of images and less of text. Then you have image and text. In these types of layout, image and text are used in equal measure and gives a balanced exposure. If you look at this, you will find that both text and image are balanced. Layout composition. The visual aspect of the message to be conveyed have to be considered to make the layout aesthetic and communicate effectively. It is simply not arrangements but communicating in an aesthetic way. Then it also depends upon what the layout is being made, since the requirement for different media differs. If you look at newspapers, magazines, books, stationery, posters, hoardings, you will notice that the layout is different for all. These layouts are based on a fixed format called grid. The layout composition is easy to make if it is based on a grid. A grid helps divide it and use the given space in an organized manner. A grid is made after the center of interest is decided depending upon the requirement. A grid helps to define the text box, the image box and the gutter space between the text, that is the space between the text and the image. This is the grid. Newspaper pages are laid out on grid, which consist of the margin or four sides, a number of vertical columns and space in between the columns. Newspaper grids are based on a different number of columns depending upon the size of the paper or the design preferences. The common page grid includes, this is a 4 column grid, this is a 5 column grid, this is a 6 and this is a 8 column grid. Now newspaper hardly uses an 8 column grid. We usually, if you look at the recent newspapers, modern newspapers, we find a 5 column grid or a 4 column grid. What is grid system? The grid method encourages the designer to view the entire page surface as a total unit, breaking the area into subzone in which the elements are placed, rather than letting the layout develop from a copy in a free-flowing haphazard manner. Each element of the total presentation, like a copy, picture, logo, etc., is placed in one or more of these sections. It is then very easy to move each of these units around until the most suitable and pleasing arrangement is determined. Text and visuals can be distributed equally, leaving white spaces as required and suitable. What are the steps in doing a grid? Grid system first divides the page into vertical and horizontal section of the equal size. Then margins are added around each unit. These margins indicates the break between the column of a copy and the break which would keep blocks of elements coming too close to each other. The divisions can now be used as required to place your text and the visuals. The example of this grid, and these are the examples of page layout, the dummy layout of newspaper. If you see, these are image text, image box, these are headlines, and these lines are text. These are various designs of a front page of a newspaper. Now let's see the elements on the front page of the newspaper. It's very important to understand the different elements on the newspaper so that you will be able to arrange it effectively. We have nameplate or a logo, you have masthead, you have flag, you have folio, you have headline, lead, display ad, article text or a story text, photos, pictures, cut lines or captions. This is a logo or a nameplate which appears on the topmost on the newspaper. Then you have a masthead which appears in every edition to give the information about the publication. The Wall Street Journal, the same way you have the Hindu, the Times of India, New Indian Express and so on. Then you have a flag which indicates the section pages or the special pages. Now this is a sports page. That way you have entertainment page, literature, classifieds, opportunities, editorial. So these are the page which indicates the sections inside the page or in the supplements page. Then you have folio line, the date and the page number that appear in the top of each newspaper page. If you see, this is a folio line which gives the information about the date and the page number of pages in the newspaper. Then you have headline, which wraps the story and gain readers' attention. I am sure that previous classes we have discussed headline, so you will be able to identify headline better. Then we have a lead, which summarizes the news or grabs the reader's attention. The first paragraph in a news story is called a lead, which gives you the 5 W's and 1 H. Then we have a jump line, which tells the reader on which page the story is continued. In most of the cases, an important story have to be covered in detail. So a front page spaces are not enough to cover. In that cases, the story runs inside the page. It is very important to inform the reader where the story is being continued. This information is called as a jump line. So these are some of the elements of the front page of the newspaper. Later we will discuss in the next section the principles of design. Thank you.